Hey YouTube, Rick Wilson here. Now we're leaving next week on our big trip for this year. We're going to be gone an entire month. Going to see a whole bunch of neat places, and I'll be putting all the videos on starting in September. But before we leave, I want to do another video about the little guy tag camper. Now I did one video on this camper already that I went through all the features on it, just like pretty much out of the manual. So what I intend to show in this video is, now that we got 10,000 miles on this camper, I'm going to show you the things that are not in the manual. So we've had plenty of time in this camper. We still love it. We're absolutely in love with this camper. And I'm not going to say anything bad about it, but I do want to show some things that we found out along the way that if you're about to buy one of these, or you just bought one, that you may want to know, and it'll help you out tremendously, because you know we had a few problems along the way, but we figured them out. And so we're going to start, and I'm just going to kind of work from the front to the back on it, okay? So we're going to start up here at the tongue. Okay, the tongue. Now, according to the manual, this from the ground to the top of this ball needs to be 16 inches off the ground. So we went and bought the receiver. You know, the receiver is the bar that you slide into the hole on the back of your towing vehicle, and you can buy different drops, you know, or rises, what they call it. You know, different. You got to get it to the right height. So we went and bought the correct receiver for our hitch that brought it to exactly 16 inches, and we went and picked up the trailer, and it towed home just fine, because it needs to be 16 inches so that it's like this. You don't want your camper being like this or like this. If this is too high or too low, because it can actually cause the wheels of your truck to lift off the ground when you try to stop suddenly. So you need to keep it level. And the problem was, we towed it home just fine. It towed beautifully. But then we went to go on our first trip, and when I hooked the trailer up to the truck, it was like this. And the reason for that was the trailer was empty when we towed it from the place where we bought it. And when we went to leave on the trip, we had our segways in the back of the truck, the generator, which weighs a lot, 5-gallon gas can, 5-gallon water jugs, the big canopy that we had last year. It was just all this weight, and the truck was sitting a good 4 inches lower than it did before, and this part of the jack was so near the ground, I was afraid I would hit something. And you do not want to hit something with this jack while you're moving, because you will damage the jack and you will not be able to use this thing at all. So the first thing I had to do is go out and buy a new receiver for my hitch that was about 4 inches higher than the old one. So when you buy these, I got the one receiver in here, I believe. Yeah, right here. Now see, you slide this into your truck, and this is how the old one was. When the trailer's empty, this one's perfect. This keeps it 16 inches off the ground. But when the truck is loaded and the camper is all loaded, we need one that comes out to more about here. It's almost straight out. And then that gets this 16 inches off the ground. And so you'll need to buy two of these. One for when you're hauling the camper empty, and one for when it's fully loaded and you're going on a trip. You're going to have two different heights. Now, the next thing I want to show you is the storage under the bed. Now, I've moved the other mattress. These mattresses lay side by side. It makes a king-size bed. But I moved the other mattress over just for now to do this video. But you would normally lift this up with the mattress on it, and you got storage in here, which we kept our clothes. And because it's in little compartments under here, and it makes it real nice. You can put all your underwear in one place, and socks in another, and your shirts, and anyway, all your clothes. And you only have to get under here once a day, you know, to get whatever you're wearing out. But the problem is once you get the mattresses on here, once you get your sheets, once you get your quilts and your pillows, it actually is kind of heavy to lift up. And when you're trying to hold it up with one hand, and you're trying to dig your clothes out or arrange things, it gets pretty heavy, hard to hold up. So what I found was just a broomstick. Just go cut a piece of a broomstick. See, that's the handle of a broom. And just keep it right in here with your clothes. When you lift it up, you can just prop that open like that. Now I can get in here with both hands, and I can, you know, get whatever I want and take my time and not be killing myself holding that up. And then now we're going to move to the inside where the charging center for this thing is. Okay, now inside the camper, We're in the sleeping compartment is the charging center. You got a charging center here with a 12-volt outlet, USB connectors, and regular outlets. And then this box here opens up. And you got your circuit breakers when you're connected to shore power. You got your fuses when you're running off your battery. If you overload it, you know, you can pop a breaker or blow a fuse depending on if you're hooked up to shore power or the battery. But the manual, when it explains this thing, it is so complicated. It talks about 5 modes of operation and all this stuff, and it's really, really complicated. But what you need to know, instead of what you just tear that section of the manual out and throw it away, what you need to know is that it's automatic. If you plug into the shore power, you're running on shore power. As soon as you disconnect the shore power, it automatically switches to the battery. So, and then if you connect to your truck and you've got the round plug instead of the flat plug, you should try to get the round plug, because it's got a wire that charges your battery while you're driving off of the truck. And it just does it automatic. So the manual makes it sound really complicated, but you don't have to do anything. Don't have to do anything. The only thing you do is right here. See this thing right here? Let me try to zoom on this new camera. I got a new camera, by the way, to take for this trip. Right here. You have to go buy one of these. You plug this into the 12-volt outlet, and it tells you your voltage of your battery. You really have to. They should have had a readout built into this thing. I don't know why they didn't. Let me close this door up. But right now it's kind of hard to read. Maybe if I tilt it up a little bit, you might be able to see it. Yeah, now you can see it. It's 12.5 volts. So anything above 12 volts, you know, you're good with your battery. You don't want your battery to get much below 12 volts. If you get down to like 11.9 volts, 11.8 volts, you need to get it charged back up. Whether you plug in the shore power, connect it to your truck, or just connect the generator up instead of shore power and recharge it off a generator. But you got to keep this thing above 12 volts. And it's not that bad, and I'll explain the electric use in a second when we get to the kitchen, because that's where we found the biggest impact. The biggest impact is not running the fan to keep cool or the lights, and they got some pretty bright lights on the porch outside this thing at night. You can really light up the area around this trailer really nice, but the kitchen is what mattered the most on your battery life. But anyway, I was going to say, here's your charging center, you got the air conditioner, you got a high-def TV, you got a nice AM/FM stereo with auxiliary stuff and, you know, Bluetooth and all that crap. And you know, it's a pretty nice setup inside of here. It's got some lights in here that work really nice. They can go on really dim or brighter or with a blue light, so if one person's trying to sleep, and this, you know, we liked it. And but let's move back to the kitchen now. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is this canopy here. Okay, last year I wanted a canopy like this, but we went and they said they had one in stock, and then when we got there they couldn't find it. And then the only thing they had in stock was one of these big giant Easy Ups, and these things are terrible. I've had about 6 of these in the past, and the first good wind you got, they break and tear up, which this one did the very first night we put it up. And then I had to duct tape it, and we just use a duct tape canopy. You know, these hollow tube frames on them, they tend to just buckle and break in the wind. And these things are great for family reunions or whatnot, but they're not great if you get a storm. But this here is the Coleman canopy, and the main difference in this Coleman canopy and that Easy Up is that all of the frame in there is solid aluminum. It's not hollow aluminum, it's solid aluminum. And then the legs telescope down, and this thing's only 5x7, where the canopy we used last year was 10x10, and it was just way too big. This one I think is just right for this trailer and the kitchen area, and we can sit there, and it's just perfect. And it folds up such a small thing. The Easy Up was almost too big to even get into the bed of the pickup truck. It's so big when it's folded up. This thing, when it folds up, it's only like 2 feet long. It doesn't take up much space. We can fold it up and throw it inside the camper. I did want to show what I did with the legs of this canopy. Okay, because normally you have to stake your canopy to the ground, or if you're in a spot where you can't stake it, like if you're on pavement, you would have to use some kind of weights to hold it down. But what I did was I made this I just come up with this myself here. Let me come in close on it and I'll show you. So I took a piece of wood and I put a bolt through it, a 3/8 inch bolt that can go through the hole on the leg here of the canopy. And then the other end of the wood, I just smash it right under the stabilizer for the camper. See this thing? You crank this down with a crank, and it lifts the camper up a little bit and makes it nice and solid so it don't bounce around when you're in it. So the entire weight of the camper is sitting on this board, and it is solid. So this tent cannot go anywhere. So it doesn't matter if I'm in grass or on pavement or where I'm at. I can just use this, and it ain't going nowhere. Unless it blows the entire camper away, then, you know, I don't want to be there for that. And then the other legs in the back, I just took some diamond plate and drilled a hole and put a 3/8 inch bolt, and they bolted. And this diamond plate is really, really heavy. Okay, so these back two legs aren't going anywhere either. And I can set stuff on this plate, you know, just set stuff there instead of in the grass. I can set the cooler on there if I want. Now let me move on around. One other thing I did do for the canopies too, by the way, is I went and got these little Styrofoam Noodles, and I just snapped these over these legs where if the wind blows hard enough and moves this enough, it'll hit the camper and it'll just hit styrofoam, and nothing will get damaged if it's a hard wind. Okay, now I'm sitting here under my canopy in my kitchen area here. Here's the kitchen, and I want to show you a couple things we figured out on the kitchen. Well, let's see. Let's start with the coffee maker first. Now, last year we took a normal Keurig like we had in the house, but you know, Keurig draws like 1,500 watts. So we could only run it when we were hooked up to shore power. If I wanted to run it when we was at Yellowstone last year, and we had no shore power at Yellowstone for an entire week, and I wanted some Keurig coffee, so we had to just fire up the generator. But it would pop a fuse or circuit breaker inside if you tried to make coffee with the Keurig, and so we just had to hook the Keurig directly to the generator and to make coffee with it. But so we went out and found this one. It's made by Chulix is the company. This is like the world's smallest Keurig coffee makers. It's only 4 inches wide, about the size of your coffee cup, and it's very small. I got it velcroed to the ground here, or to the table. But see, it's very small. Now with the Keurig, every time we were done with it, or every day when we left the campground, we had to like close this door, and the Keurig, you had to like drain the water out of it and lay it on its side or put it down in the sink, or you wouldn't be able to get this door shut. This coffee maker here, as long as you place it sideways like it is, you can shut the door and leave it just sit there, and the on button to make your coffee is right in the front, so it actually works out really well. And this coffee maker only draws 600 watts, you know, less than half of what a Keurig does. It does take 3 minutes to make a cup of coffee though, instead of 60 seconds. But you gotta make some sacrifices. So you know, a tiny camper, you got the tiniest Keurig coffee maker in the world. So that worked out there. In my video originally about this camper, I told you about how a lot of videos about these campers, if you watch them, people complain that they can't fit a normal frying pan onto these burners because everything is so small. And I did a big rant on my last video about, you know, look people, it's a tiny camper, you got to get a tiny frying pan. And now what I found that works really great, well, I don't have it out here, it's just a 2-quart saucepan with Teflon coated, and I just use it. You can fry bacon in that. That works great. But then I just found these little tiny frying pans here. They're little teeny tiny frying pans. It can hold 2 eggs. You can put a hamburger in there. You know, there's lots of different things you can cook. And these things just sit on there great. And they're perfect for a tiny little stove. So anyway, I got those. These are Teflon coated. They're non-stick. Now let's get back to the, well, and then another thing is with this new canopy here, and we'll be sitting right here in our kitchen area. The Big Easy Up, we usually had to set it away from the camper because it was just so daggone big. But now we can just sit here, so now with these chairs here, we can just kind of use this floor like a table to set our plates on, and you got your counter space. If you watched the video last time, we took all kinds of crap, and this counter was cluttered with all kinds of appliances that we didn't end up using. So this time we're only taking what we actually use, which is the coffee maker, the toaster, and the gas stove. And we did use the microwave. And and then the refrigerator. Now the refrigerator is what I want to talk to you about with the electrical, okay? Because when it comes to that battery, when I told you you can run your generator, if you're in a spot with no electric, you can run your generator a half hour in the morning and a half hour at night, or you can run it 2 hours depending on how you do this refrigerator. Okay, this makes the biggest impact on that battery up front, this refrigerator. This is, let me pull it out. It's a Norcold, it's a refrigerator freezer. You can use it as a freezer or refrigerator, and it works great. I mean, you can set it down to 0 degrees, and this thing, even on that battery, it will hold that food at 0 degrees. And that's what we did last trip. We put enough meat in there for the entire month and froze it solid, and this thing kept it froze solid. But we had to run the generator 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night, which is a long damn time, and it was just too long. But what we found out the last week, when we had a week to go before we were heading home, I told her, well, let's switch it to 32 degrees and make a refrigerator out of it, because the rest of the meat that's left would keep for a week in a refrigerator. So once I turned this thing to 32 degrees, it only took a half hour to run the generator in the morning and a half hour to run the generator at night. It used way less electric using it as a refrigerator. It just has to run too hard. It did run great as a freezer, but it used a lot of your battery. And that's about it. I think I've covered. Oh, one other thing. This is important. I've still got a scar on my head because of this thing. The company should be sued for designing it this way. I said I wasn't going to say nothing bad about this camper. Now I'm about to break what I promised. I'm going to say one bad thing about this camper. And let me move the camera. It's this latch for the door. This latch that locks the door when you close it for the kitchen. 3 times last vacation, I hit my head on this. See where it's at? I hit my head on this. And this is, now let me do a close-up of this thing so you can see what I'm talking about here. All right, here, see this thing? Look, this thing is sharp on the edges, and it gashed my head. And so what I found, let me put this on here, and I'll just turn around and show you this one. If you go to the cat toy section of your pet store, you'll find these small little tennis balls that are about the size of a quarter, and I put these on here. And you can't use a regular tennis ball because the door won't close. But these small little tennis balls will still let the lock work, and you can close the door. And I banged my head on this a couple times, and that does not hurt. I mean, I gashed my head open last year 3 times. I was getting so angry every time it happened. So anyway, I've got the tennis balls on there now, and this will close, and you can just leave them on there and forget about them. Okay, and that's about it for this video, and we'll be leaving here next week, and we'll be gone a month, and in about 6 weeks from right now you'll see the new videos start coming out, and so we will see you then. Oh, we're going to a lot of neat places, so you really need to come back and check some of them out.